if you're a creative person or attempt to be, and to communicate that publicly as opposed to just do it at home, then there is some unwritten responsibility to attempt to share that experience and perception with other people, and that the motive should be that it's useful to them, it improves their ability to survive and feel sane or stable in this society, and possibly enhances their themselves or thereby it's like osmosis, osmosis oneself.
This is a story, a very special story. It's about Brian Jones, one of the Rolling Stones.
In the 1980s, a storm was brewing in the underground. A sonic revolution was on the horizon, and at the heart of it was a group that sought to dissolve the boundaries between music, performance, ritual, and society itself. That group was Psychick TV, a band, an artistic collective, and a cultural movement that would forever alter the landscape of industrial music, performance art, and counterculture. Formed by Genesis P-Orridge, a figure who would come to define the radical edge of experimental music, Psychick TV was more than just a band. It was an extension of a larger vision, one that sought to collapse the walls between life and art, between performance and ritual.
We've always believed that the real job of any artist is to take that decision to risk everything.
Before Psychick TV, there was Throbbing Gristle, the band that would lay the groundwork for industrial music as we know it. Genesis P-Orridge, along with Cozy Fanny 2T, Peter Christopherson, and Chris Carter, had been part of this pioneering group. Throbbing Gristle was not just about music, it was about creating sound as an art form, pushing boundaries, and challenging the norms of society. But Genesis had bigger ideas that would go beyond the soundscapes of this band. Psychick TV was born from the ashes of Throbbing Gristle, a vessel for P-Orridge's burgeoning philosophy, one that intertwined mysticism, sexuality, occultism, and art.
We're called Psychic Television, Psychic TV, Psychedelic Transvestites, and
From the start, Psychick TV's performances were unlike anything the world had seen. They weren't concerts, they were rituals, performances meant to break down the barriers between audience and performer. Genesis P-Orridge, alongside fellow members like Alex Ferguson and Peter Christopherson, created an immersive experience that challenged not only the auditory senses, but also the viewer's understanding of reality itself. The live shows were drenched in visual excess, with projections, strange symbols, and symbolic imagery. Each performance was a living, breathing artwork that blurred the lines between ritual and entertainment. These shows were not about spectacle for spectacle's sake. Every element of their performances had meaning, drawing from occult philosophies and the belief that art could change reality.
Greetings to Deutschland. Alles klar, yes, hello, is this machine recording? If it's recording, it's probably recording an imprint from my brain to your brain through the electricity between us, and that means there's a chance for a small message and a 4-letter word with 5 letters in it. It's called unity between between us we can have unity. Now, some people seem to feel that unity and touching and caring are a sign of weakness. I personally believe that the age of nihilism and suicide and death and depression has become the mirror of politicians and those who like to suppress young people. I therefore believe that pleasure and unity and a tribal caring and loyalty are the answer, and the radical answer, and the political, sexual, magical, chemical answer to the control and destruction and conditioning of all of us. So I would ask you, as I fade from your electricity, to remember you are the retina of my mind, and I can see you, and I want you to see me free and feel for yourself. Danke.
Psychick TV's music was a unique blend of industrial sound, experimental noise, and ambient textures. Their 1982 album, Force the Hand of Chance, was a turning point. It marked the beginning of the band's deep engagement with mystical and spiritual themes. The album was a journey into the realms of the subconscious. Tracks like The Orchids and Just Like the Other blended post-punk rhythms with esoteric imagery, creating a haunting atmosphere that invited listeners into a different world. With this album, Psychick TV began to establish themselves as not just a band, but a vessel for radical thought and new ways of experiencing sound.
Doneu-me un calmari, les alzines pels nens. Hòstia puta, cap de cones. A mi doneu-me un fill. El portarem a Barcelona, a operar Bellvitge. Xavi, quina hora és? Truca a casa. Estic bé.
The band's use of multimedia was also groundbreaking. Psychick TV didn't just release albums, they released total sensory experiences. Videos, films, and even live broadcasts were used to immerse the audience in their philosophy. Genesis and the band believed that the medium itself, whether music, video, or performance, was an integral part of the message. They wanted to transcend the traditional boundaries of art and use all available forms of expression to create a total experience. At the heart of the early Psychick TV movement was the London underground scene, where the group's boundary-pushing approach found fertile ground. The band's shows were often paired with underground video art, bringing together the worlds of music, art, and experimental film. Psychick TV's philosophy was aligned with the counterculture movements of the time, particularly the punk ethos, which rejected societal norms and embraced a DIY, anti-authoritarian attitude. But for Genesis, Psychick TV wasn't merely about pushing artistic boundaries. It was also about personal transformation. Psychick TV's music and performances were meant to be transformative experiences, helping both the band and their audience transcend the mundane and tap into something higher, something hidden. The group's work was deeply influenced by occultism, mysticism, and the teachings of Aleister Crowley, particularly his idea of magic as the act of changing consciousness to shape reality. The band adopted a view of art and performance that was inspired by the ritualistic and transgressive practices of occult philosophy. Their shows often contained occult symbols and themes, and their music invoked the idea of sound as magic, that music could be used as a tool for personal and spiritual evolution.
That this maximizes and makes happen all those things that one wants in every area of life. Explore daily your deepest desires, fantasies, and motives, gradually focusing on what you really would like to happen in a perfect world.
Psychick TV's performances were not just concerts, they were radical acts of defiance. The band's commitment to challenging societal norms, exploring taboo subjects, and pushing the boundaries of both music and art would soon draw the attention of media, institutions, and the law. Their work went beyond music. It became a battleground for freedom of expression.
3, 2, 1, action.
Would you like to explain to the court, Genesis, exactly what happened after this trial?
Well, first of all, I had no money, so I had to borrow money to pay the fines, which luckily friends gave to me. I was a very poor boy at the time. And then I found that tours abroad were cancelled. I got phone calls from the Foreign Office threatening to take away my passport because I would be a bad advert for Britain. And when we had a retrospective show at the ICA 2 or 3 months later, there were queues of reporters at the door before there were queues of art fans. And also I had a criminal record, which meant that I could potentially not be allowed into certain countries ever again, could not get visas. It was a very difficult time, really.
Psychick TV's transgressive approach wasn't just met with acclaim, it also sparked controversy. Their explicit content, occult imagery, and exploration of radical themes drew the attention of cultural conservatives, who saw the band's message as a threat to traditional values. As their popularity grew, so did their media scrutiny. Some of their albums and performances were censored for obscenity, with certain venues even banning their shows due to the controversial themes. Their music, which combined industrial noise with radical politics, was seen as an affront to the moral majority of the time.
And it certainly seemed well out of proportion with something not much different to a seaside postcard.
Would you be frightened to go through all this again?
Frightened to go... Oh, would I be frightened to go through it all again? No, I wouldn't be frightened to go through it all again if it seemed the right cause. I'm prepared to stand on the line and fight over the topic that I choose. But I'm a great believer in, wherever possible, choosing the battleground, choosing the weapons, and then having the duel, rather than being sneaked upon from behind and stabbed in the back.
As Psychick TV's artistic vision expanded, it evolved into the Temple of Psychick Youth. The movement pushed the boundaries even further, mixing ritual, mysticism, and personal transformation with the very philosophy of challenging established social norms. But with this radical shift came even more scrutiny. The Temple of Psychick Youth was seen by some as an underground cult, and its provocative activities led to censorship and media vilification. The controversial nature of their rituals and subversive ideas led to increasing attention from authorities.
Hypocrisy and conditioning. You can, for example, make your opposite admit, as being obvious, that there is no such thing as a theory that is absolutely true. That will not stop them in any way from continuing to brandish their truths as before. It is up to everyone to accept the power their bodies are endowed with and decide what they are going to do with it.
Power to the people who want to dress up and run around in circles and feel comfortable by feeling connected with some past technique. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not a survival technique, and that's not necessarily relevant to the world now. We're dealing with the atomic nuclear age, we're dealing with space, and magic, if it's real, deals with those things too.
The speaker is Genesis P-Orridge, director of Psychick Youth, a group which believes in changing society through the magical transformation of individuals. But despite rejecting many of the trappings of magic, Genesis does not question its power.
Magic can achieve everything. There are essential factors in it, and the main factor is that the conscious and unconscious mind should be integrated, and that desires and ambitions should also be integrated with action. Basically, it's all about self-discipline. So we have a basic belief in the power of the human brain, or what we call neurological magic, which is that most phenomena, explained or unexplained, are actually simply a biological, physiological, or psychological action of the brain. They're not demons, they're not spirits, they're not gods, they're not anti-gods. It's actually an ability like a muscle that you can learn to use and you can explore.
As Psychick TV's influence grew, their ideas evolved from being contained within music and performance into something far more expansive. With the Temple of Psychick Youth, the band's radical message took shape not only in sound and ritual, but in writings that would serve as the cornerstone for the movement. At the center of this philosophy was the Psychick Bible, a text that merged occult teachings, personal transformation, and psychic revolution into a unified manifesto. The Temple of Psychick Youth was not just about being part of a group. The printed materials served as tools to reshape the self, to awaken the hidden potentials of the mind, and to break free from the chains of conventional thought. This radical literature continued to inspire and challenge people long after the movement began to fade from the public eye. Though their message was sometimes met with censorship and legal challenges, it only solidified their role as pioneers of the counterculture. By resisting authority, Psychick TV became more than just a band. They became a symbol of artistic freedom, showing that art could be a transformative force, one that transcended the confines of society's limitations. As the years passed, Psychick TV continued to evolve, exploring new soundscapes and delving deeper into experimental music. Their commitment to exploring new ways of experiencing reality never wavered. Over the years, the band would morph into new iterations, collaborating with other musicians and artists who shared their vision. Psychick TV's influence rippled through the underground, leaving an indelible mark on the industrial, goth, and experimental music scenes. The band's unique fusion of art, philosophy, mysticism, and radical politics became a touchstone for the 80s and 90s avant-garde movements. Psychick TV may no longer exist in the same form, but their legacy continues to resonate. They were more than just a band. They were an idea, a vision that extended far beyond music. In a world that often thrives on conformity, they dared to imagine something radically different. They envisioned a world where art, mysticism, and radical thought could converge, where the boundaries of reality could be blurred and reshaped. Through sound, through performance, through philosophy, they invited us to question everything we thought we knew. And in doing so, they created a movement that didn't simply end with their last show or record. It continues to live on, quietly echoing in the hearts and minds of those who dare to think differently. They challenged us not only to push the limits of creativity, but to explore the very limits of human experience itself.
Tragic.
I think everybody's interested in weird and strange things. That's why the News of the World sells more than any other newspaper. It's full of rape, and it's full of decadence, and it's full of corruption, and yet it pretends to be on a platform of indignation. And I think that as an example, in a way, sums up one of the basic problems that we have in this country and in a lot of other countries, which is that people actually commercially exploit the bizarre or the tragic whilst pretending to be indignant about it. And then if an artist or a musician tries to deal with the same subjects, they are immediately accused of approving of those subjects.
What Psychick TV understood, perhaps more than anyone, was that art is not just a reflection of the world, it is a force capable of changing it. Their legacy is not just in the songs they made or the performances they left behind, but in the idea that we can all contribute to a larger, more expansive vision of existence. And so, their question remains, how far are we willing to go to reshape the reality we live in? It is a question that will continue to resonate, carried forward by those who seek to look beyond the surface and confront the unknown.
And even now we're still in the same position. We're still the outlaws, we're still the scapegoats, and we're still always, or nearly always, misrepresented. It's both an achievement and it's also an albatross at the same time, really.
Thank you for watching. Visit thirdmind.studio for more.